Hello there, YouTube. Devin here again, and today I have a boot review for you. Now, a lot of you will probably recognize these. I even gave a pair of these to my buddy Roy, because he goes out ice fishing a lot. And for you that live in the South or in other parts of the world don't know what ice fishing is, it's like fishing you do in the winter when lakes freeze up. You basically go put a shit house out in the lake and you drill a hole through the floor and you go fishing through the ice inside an outhouse on top of a frozen lake. Um, Best way to describe it, really, because the lake's frozen, so you obviously can't take a boat. So, but it allows you to get to good fishing spots relatively easy. But there's one thing you do, and there's one thing that happens when you're ice fishing, and that's if your ice house isn't super well built or really, really expensive, or you don't bring a heater with you, is it gets pretty fucking cold. These are boots, insulated, cold weather, rubber, black. For wet and cold use. So there are actually 3 versions of these still currently made. There's this black rubber version, there is a white rubber version, and then there is a black rubber version with a white toe indicating that it has steel toes. So these are the unsteel toe, regular old rubber, black extreme cold boots. Now, these were developed way back in the 1950s, actually, during the Korean War, because the Korean Peninsula actually has some pretty rough winters. So during the Korean War, we were losing a lot of people to what the military calls cold weather casualties, which would be like frostbite, hypothermia, trench foot, stuff like that. So they came out with these pairs of boots. Now, this pair specifically isn't a 1950s pair. This pair was actually made in 1980, as I'll show you when we get to the inside. And I've actually had these for a large number of years, probably going on 10 years now. I even have the original pamphlet that tells you how to take care of them and everything with them. So I will hold this up here on the screen, and if you want to read it, feel free to pause it and read it. I'll just hold it up here for a few seconds, and then I will flip it over so you guys can see the back. There you go. So that's the little pamphlet they come with. Now, these ones are made by Beta or Bata or whatever you want to see. They're made by like 3 or 4 different companies, though. I don't think these are made anymore. They might do limited contracts every now and then, but a lot of these seem to be sitting around in inventory. So I like the black pair. The black pair is perfectly necessary for me. I ended up giving my buddy Roy my white pair because the black pair is actually only designed to get down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And then after that, they're not good enough anymore. And these are designed to be used in both active and static operations. So even if you're just standing guard or something, not moving, these should keep your feet warm. The white ones are designed to go down to, I think it's like negative 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Don't quote me on that because I don't have a pair of those anymore. But I've worn these down in like negative 40 degrees. And my feet are just fine in these with a nice pair of socks. Because I actually have very hot feet normally. So this works perfectly fine for me. But how these came about is they're made by taking 2 layers of rubber. All right, so there's the outer part of the boot here. And then there is an inner part as well. So the only thing is the last like 2 inches up here are just one single layer. But everything below that, so there's 2 layers of rubber, and sandwiched in between those layers of rubber are felt and wool in a kind of sandwich type thing. So in alternating layers to give the boot some rigidity and also some very, very large amount of insulation. Now, they make the black boot in 2 versions. There's the regular black boot that's all black, and then there's the black boot with the white toe. The black boots with the white toe have steel toes, so if you're interested in having steel toes, you can get the black ones in steel toes, but the white boots do not come in steel toes as far as I know. As you can see on the outside of the boot, it tells you to fold the gusset. So the gusset, you can see the tongue. This would be the top of the tongue where this last little bit of neoprene is. It's supposed to be right in the middle. So all of the excess tongue is supposed to be folded off to the outside of the boot. All right, you're supposed to double lace this because these will this eyelet, because so it will hold better, or otherwise these do tend to come loose, because they are so big and heavy and loose and pretty rigid because they're so thick. They also have these. Now, I had one friend, well, not one friend, but I heard one story of a guy who was so convinced that this little nozzle here was so that you could blow air into your boots to heat your feet. And everyone called him an idiot, because you know what this is actually designed for? These are designed because of the two sandwich layers of rubber with air trap between them. The boots tended to expand in pressure changes. So like if you were to, let's say, wear these up on an airborne operation, these could blow up. So what this little thing is to do is you have this little dial on here that unscrews. Okay, it unscrews a pretty good amount of ways, but it's captive to allow air to exchange between the layers. So that way you don't, your boots don't explode when you go up in a plane, in a pressurized plane. So what you can do is, these are watertight as long as you keep this screwed down. But if you have this open and you step into the water, water will get in between the layers, and felt does not do well when it's wet. It kind of disintegrates. Now, the sizing on these, I wear a 10.5. Worn a 10.5 wide pretty much since 10th grade, when I actually figured out what my true military boot size was, is it's 10.5 wide. But these don't come in half sizes. These are only made in whole sizes, but standard U.S. military practice, well, not practice, but most cases boots run large. So they say in the manual, if you pause to read that, that you order a half size up. But I wear a size 10.5, and I rounded down to just a 10 regular, and these seem to work just fine. They fit perfect, actually. So, because they still do tend to run kind of large. Now, you can find different tread patterns on them and stuff if you're looking for a specific thing. Like I said, you can choose whatever pair you need, the black, the white, or the black, or the steel toe pair. For whatever situation you think is best. These are actually pretty cheap, readily available, and most of them you can find brand new and unused. They are going to be quite heavy, though. They're designed to be really comfortable out of the box, so you don't need to break them in, because they don't expect you to be wearing these for a shit ton amount of time. We'll take a look in there now, and you can see the 1980s kind of faded out, but these were made by on August 18th in 1980. There's the contract number right beneath it, and as you can see there, it's a different thing of rubber is all sandwiched in between down in there. Now, how you take care of these is it says to like scrub them with steel wool and warm soap. Pretty much you can just use dish soap on them. Don't scour them too hard, or you'll start pulling apart the rubber layers up here, because they're just heat adhered together. So don't scrub too hard. Try to go with the grain when you're scrubbing these boots on the rubber, so you don't start peeling it back. Just use light soap and stuff like that. Don't use anything too harsh on these. And then what I like to do with all of my boots is I have a big jug of just silicone oil. Just get a big jug of silicone oil, and you just lightly go over them. Take like a sponge or a rag, and then just get some silicone oil on it and wring it out really, really good, and then just go over it lightly, because it's going to keep the rubber from drying out and cracking eventually with extended disuse of these. I do that on my Wellingtons too. So it's just a good way to take care of like my rubberized rain suit, because I've never liked Gore-Tex. I have a rubberized rain suit, and I do that with that too. You make sure you go over it. I try to go over it at least once a year. Wash it off with some Dawn Dish soap, and then go over it with some silicone oil, and it keeps it from drying out and cracking. So that's just something I do with these. But they clean pretty easy, because they are rubber boots. They work very well. They're very cheap, and I highly recommend you guys get a pair. These are still in use today, mostly in just Alaska. You can see some of these still used out in New York with the 10th Mountain Division and stuff like that. Every now and then, especially when it gets really cold there in the winter. But for the most part, these are pretty much restricted to use in Alaska. The U.S. did send a bunch of these as aid over to NATO countries at one point before they had some of these. But I think most countries have developed their own now. So highly recommend you get a pair of these if you guys live in a cold weather environment, because these are pretty great. They're really comfortable right out of the box. They're really easy to maintain. and they're cheap, so can't go wrong with cheap. So thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video. Plan on making a few videos today since I have today off. Let me know what you think. If you've ever used a pair of these, please rate your experiences with these, your pros and cons on them in the comments, so people can have access to that information if they're looking for reviews and stuff. I quite like them, but I know a lot of people really don't like these because there's a lot better fitting, a lot lighter options out there. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, additional information, leave that down in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer those as they appear. Hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Bye.